The city was waking up slowly, stretching under the soft hues of early morning light. In a quiet neighborhood where the streets were just beginning to fill with the usual rhythm of cars, school buses, and people rushing to work, there was a small scene that many would have overlooked. But it was a moment that would soon change lives. Jamal was already up, long before the sun had fully risen. The day ahead was going to be tough, just like every day. He worked as a construction worker, his hands calloused and strong from years of labor. His job wasn't glamorous or easy, but it paid the bills, and more importantly, it allowed him to care for his daughter, Kayla. Kayla was 7 years old, but she had never seen the world in the way most children did. Born blind, she experienced life through touch, sound, and the warmth of her father's love. Jamal's entire world revolved around her. Every decision he made, every penny he saved was for Kayla's well-being. That morning, Jamal sat on the edge of the sidewalk just outside their small apartment, a plastic bowl in his lap. Kayla, calm and trusting, sat beside him. The bowl held warm oatmeal mixed with mashed bananas, her favorite breakfast. Jamal carefully scooped a spoonful, gently guiding it to Kayla's lips, watching closely for any reaction. She smiled softly, humming a quiet tune as she tasted the food. For Jamal, these simple moments were precious. Feeding his daughter was more than just giving her nourishment. It was a daily ritual of love and care, a promise that no matter what challenges came their way, she would always be protected and cherished. As Jamal fed Kayla, his eyes wandered briefly to the construction site down the street where he worked. The thought of the long hours ahead made his shoulders tense. The job was physically demanding, the pay barely enough, and there were no guarantees. But Jamal had learned to push through, fueled by his determination to give Kayla a better life. Just then, a sleek black car slowed down nearby. The driver's door opened, and Robert stepped out. He was impeccably dressed, his tailored suit crisp and his polished shoes clicking on the pavement. Robert was a millionaire, a man used to control and luxury, the CEO of a thriving tech company. He was a familiar face in the city's elite circles, where success was measured by net worth and influence. But today, Robert's usual world felt distant as he caught sight of Jamal and Kayla. Something about the scene pulled him in, Jamal's careful attention, the gentle way he cared for his daughter despite their modest surroundings. Robert stopped, curious and silent. He watched as Jamal spoke softly to Kayla, reassuring her, feeding her patiently spoon by spoon. Kayla's blind eyes lit up with trust and joy, a bond so pure it transcended everything else. Robert realized this was a kind of richness money couldn't buy. He thought about his own family, about the distance he felt from his teenage son who seemed to live in a world of screens and distractions. Was Robert really giving his family the love and time they needed? Or had he been blinded by the pursuit of wealth and success? As the minutes passed, Robert felt something shift inside him. He wanted to step closer, to say something, to connect. But pride and hesitation held him back. Meanwhile, Jamal finished feeding Kayla and gently wiped her mouth with a cloth. He smiled tiredly, his mind already running through the day's challenges, the heavy lifting, the harsh supervisors, the bills stacking up. But there was no time to dwell on worries now. Kayla's laughter was a balm, her presence a light. Suddenly, Kayla reached out, her small hand touching Jamal's face with the innocence only a child could possess. Jamal's heart clenched. "You're my whole world," he whispered. Robert, standing a short distance away, felt tears prick at his eyes. Here was a man, a father, whose greatest treasure was his daughter, a daughter who couldn't see him but who knew him in every heartbeat. The world Robert lived in was vastly different, filled with business meetings, fancy dinners, and constant pressure. Yet here, on this quiet street corner, he witnessed a love so raw and real it humbled him. He approached slowly, clearing his throat to announce his presence. Jamal looked up, startled, instinctively protective. "Excuse me," Robert said softly, trying to find the right words. "I hope I'm not intruding. I just wanted to say, what you're doing here is incredible. The way you care for your daughter, it's inspiring." Jamal blinked, unsure what to make of this well-dressed stranger. "Thank you," he replied cautiously. "She's my world." Robert nodded, the words catching in his throat. "I can see that. And I realize that sometimes, the things that truly matter aren't things you can buy." They stood there for a moment, two men from different worlds, connected by the simple act of a father feeding his child. Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out his business card. I'd like to help, if you'll let me. Maybe there are ways I can support you and Kayla. Jamal hesitated. Pride was a strong thing, and accepting help was not easy. But something about Robert's genuine kindness broke through his walls. Maybe, Jamal said slowly, maybe we can talk. That moment marked the beginning of a journey neither of them expected. A journey that would challenge Robert's assumptions about success and redefine what it meant to truly care for someone. And for Jamal, it offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to build a future where Kayla's blindness wouldn't be a barrier, but just a part of their story. As Robert drove away that morning, his mind was racing with ideas, not about stocks or deals, but about empathy, family, and the power of connection. For Jamal, the day ahead was still filled with hard work and uncertainty. But now there was something new, a spark of possibility that maybe, just maybe, their lives were about to change forever. After that morning, Robert couldn't shake the image of Jamal feeding his daughter from his mind. It was simple, yet profound, a father's love that transcended hardship, poverty, and circumstance. For days, Robert found himself reflecting on the encounter, questioning the meaning of success and what he had truly prioritized in his life. He was a man with everything: wealth, power, a sprawling mansion, the kind of lifestyle others envied. But for the first time in a long while, he felt something missing. His relationship with his own son had grown distant, strained by Robert's constant absence and obsession with his work. He wondered how often he had missed moments that mattered, how many chances to really be there for his family had slipped away while he chased the next big deal. Meanwhile, Jamal went about his daily grind, unaware of the impact he had on the millionaire's mind. He was back at the construction site, sweat dripping down his brow, the sun beating down as he lifted heavy beams and mixed concrete. The work was exhausting, and every day brought a new set of worries. Will the paycheck cover the rent? Will Kayla's therapy appointments be affordable? Will he ever be able to give her the kind of life she deserved? At lunchtime, Jamal sat on the curb with Kayla in his lap, feeding her another simple meal. She babbled softly, trusting and happy, unaware of the struggles that surrounded them. Her blindness meant she relied on Jamal for everything, and Jamal carried that responsibility with quiet dignity. One afternoon, as Jamal was helping Kayla onto the bus for school, a car pulled up slowly beside them. To Jamal's surprise, it was Robert again. This time, he got out holding a small bag. "I brought you some things," Robert said, his voice softer than before. Jamal looked at the bag, then at Robert, unsure if this was a joke or some kind of trap. "What's all this?" Robert smiled gently. "Just some supplies for Kayla, books in Braille, some toys designed for kids with visual impairments, and a few things I thought might help." Jamal's pride was tested. Accepting charity had never come easy to him. He was a man used to standing on his own 2 feet. But he also knew that these little things could make a big difference for Kayla's world. "Thank you," Jamal said quietly, the words barely above a whisper. Robert nodded. "I want to help. Not because I pity you, but because I believe everyone deserves a chance to live fully." From that day, a friendship began to grow, fragile but real. Robert visited often, learning about Kayla's world, listening to Jamal's hopes and fears. He watched as Jamal patiently taught Kayla to navigate her surroundings, to read Braille, to experience joy despite darkness. The more Robert saw, the more his perspective changed. He started to volunteer time at local organizations that supported children with disabilities, attending workshops to better understand the challenges families like Jamal's faced. His business meetings became fewer as he dedicated himself to making a tangible difference in the community. One evening, as Robert sat in his lavish office overlooking the city skyline, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Jamal. "Kayla had her first therapy session today with the new equipment you helped get. She loved it." "Thank you." Robert smiled, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. It wasn't the glow of success or money, but something deeper, the satisfaction of making an impact, of changing a life. Jamal's world was changing too. With Robert's support, he was able to enroll Kayla in a specialized school for children with visual impairments, where she could learn skills to live independently and confidently. The financial strain eased, and Jamal could finally breathe a little easier. But it wasn't just the material help that made the difference. It was the recognition, the dignity, the simple act of someone seeing them as more than their struggles. One afternoon, Jamal stood at the school's entrance, watching Kayla walk inside with a cane in hand. She smiled brightly at him, her confidence growing. Jamal's heart swelled with pride and hope. As they headed home, Robert pulled up beside them in his car. "Would you like to come by the office sometime? I'd love to introduce you to some people who might be able to help with scholarships and additional support." Jamal hesitated but then nodded. "That sounds good." The journey ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time, Jamal felt he wasn't alone. Robert's life had changed too. The friendship with Jamal and Kayla had opened his eyes to a world beyond boardrooms and bank accounts. It reminded him that true wealth wasn't about what you had, but what you gave. Months passed, and their bond grew stronger. Robert helped Jamal start a small foundation aimed at providing resources and support for families of children with disabilities. Together, they worked to create opportunities where there had been none. One evening, as Jamal tucked Kayla into bed, she reached up and held his face in her hands. "Daddy, I want to help people too, like you and Mr. Robert." Jamal smiled through tears. "You already do, sweetheart. You already do." In a world often divided by wealth and status, their story was a reminder that kindness and compassion could bridge any gap. A millionaire had learned from a hard-working father the true meaning of family, love, and giving back. And a blind little girl had shown them both that light could shine brightest in the darkest places. As the weeks turned into months, the relationship between Robert, Jamal, and Kayla grew deeper in ways neither man had expected. It wasn't just a connection formed by kindness or charity. It was a genuine friendship born from shared humanity and mutual respect. Robert, the millionaire businessman, had become a fixture in their lives, not as a distant benefactor, but as someone who truly cared. At first, Jamal was cautious. Trust didn't come easy when life had taught him to guard his heart. But Robert's sincerity showed through in every visit, every conversation, every small gesture. He wasn't there to pity or patronize, but to listen and learn. One cool autumn afternoon, Robert arrived at Jamal's modest apartment carrying a bag of groceries and a worn leather-bound notebook. Kayla, sitting on the couch with her cane resting beside her, smiled when she recognized him. "Hey, Kayla," Robert said warmly. "I brought your favorite snacks." Kayla giggled, reaching out to touch Robert's hand. "Thank you." Jamal looked on quietly, a hint of surprise and gratitude in his eyes. Over time, Robert had become more than a visitor. He was a presence of hope. They sat down together, sharing food and stories. Robert opened the notebook and began to explain. "I want to start something," he said, eyes gleaming. "A community project to support families like yours, those who care for children with disabilities but don't have the resources they need. I know money isn't everything, but it's a start. And I want to be part of it." Jamal's brow furrowed. "Why me? Why Kayla?" Robert shrugged, then smiled. "Because you showed me something I'd forgotten. Strength isn't just in what you have, it's in what you give, how you care, how you fight every day. You're a good man, Jamal. And Kayla is amazing." The weight of those words settled in Jamal's chest. For a man who'd spent years battling hardship alone, to hear such recognition was overwhelming. But it also ignited a spark, a belief that maybe, just maybe, things could change. Together, they began planning the project. Robert used his network to secure donations, find volunteer therapists, and raise awareness. Jamal reached out to families he knew, those struggling in silence. Kayla became the unofficial mascot, her bright smile and fearless spirit inspiring everyone. The foundation wasn't just about money or services. It was about building a community where no family felt isolated, where children like Kayla could thrive without barriers. Meanwhile, Robert's own life was transforming. He'd started to re-examine his priorities, balancing work with purpose. His relationships with his family began to heal, too. Seeing Jamal's devotion stirred something in him, a longing to be present, to connect beyond the superficial. One chilly evening, Robert's son, Michael, called. Their conversations had been tense for years, but that night was different. "Dad," Michael said, voice hesitant, "I've been thinking, maybe we could try again. Spend some time together." Robert's throat tightened. "I'd like that." It wasn't a quick fix, but it was a start. Slowly, Robert began to build bridges, inspired by the lessons he'd learned from Jamal's unwavering love for Kayla. Back in their small apartment, Jamal watched Kayla grow stronger every day. Her laughter filled the room, her confidence blossoming with every new skill she mastered. He no longer felt alone in the struggle. One afternoon, as Kayla practiced using her braille reader, she stopped and looked up at Jamal. "Daddy," she said softly, "do you think Mr. Robert will be at my recital?" Jamal smiled, pride swelling. He wouldn't miss it for the world. The recital was a milestone, not just for Kayla, but for everyone who had walked the journey with her. In a packed community center, parents, friends, volunteers, and supporters gathered to celebrate the children's achievements. Robert sat near the front, his eyes shining with pride. When Kayla took the stage, cane in hand, her voice clear and strong, the room erupted in applause. She wasn't defined by her blindness, she was defined by her spirit. After the performance, Robert approached Jamal, clapping him on the back. "You did an incredible job, Jamal. Kayla's amazing." Jamal shook his head, laughing softly. "She's the one who taught me how to be strong." Their partnership had become a beacon of hope for many. Together, they'd sparked a movement, reminding their city that compassion could break down walls built by fear, judgment, and misunderstanding. Yet, the path wasn't without challenges. There were moments when doubts crept in, when the weight of responsibility felt crushing. Kayla's condition sometimes worsened, and medical bills threatened to overwhelm them. During one such difficult week, Jamal sat quietly in his apartment, worry shadowing his face. Kayla had been hospitalized for a severe infection, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. Robert visited every day, bringing meals, sitting by the bedside, offering support without words. One night, as Jamal stared out the window, Robert spoke softly. "You don't have to carry this alone." Jamal nodded, emotions breaking through. "Sometimes, I'm scared I'm not enough." "You're more than enough," Robert assured him. "You're a hero." That night marked a turning point. Jamal allowed himself to lean on Robert and the community they'd built. Slowly, Kayla recovered, her resilience shining brighter than ever. As spring arrived, the foundation hosted its first annual fundraiser. The event brought together business leaders, families, and local officials, united in a mission born from an unlikely friendship. Robert stood on stage, looking out at the crowd. "This isn't just about money," he said, voice steady. "It's about hope, dignity, and the power of community. I was lucky enough to meet Jamal and Kayla, who reminded me what truly matters. Together, we can change lives." Jamal watched from the audience, feeling a swell of gratitude. Their worlds had collided in a way neither expected, but the impact was undeniable. Kayla, sitting on Jamal's lap, reached out and squeezed his hand. "Daddy, we're helping people, just like you said." Jamal smiled, tears in his eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. We are." In that moment, the millionaire and the construction worker stood side by side, not defined by wealth or status, but by their shared commitment to love and kindness. Their story was a testament to the unexpected power of human connection, how one act of compassion could ripple outward, changing not just individual lives, but entire communities. And as the city lights twinkled outside, Jamal knew this was only the beginning. Life after the fundraiser took on a new rhythm for Jamal, Kayla, and Robert. The foundation they had created together began to flourish beyond their expectations. More families joined their circle, and the community support grew stronger. What started as a simple act of kindness had blossomed into a movement, a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed indifferent. Jamal found himself busier than ever. Between his construction work, caring for Kayla, and managing the foundation's outreach programs, his days were full. But no matter how exhausted he was, he never missed a moment with Kayla. Every smile she gave him, every milestone she reached, was worth every sacrifice. Robert, too, was transformed. His world of high-stakes deals and corporate meetings now included visits to hospitals, therapy centers, and community events. He used his influence and resources to ensure the foundation had what it needed: funding, publicity, and connections. But more importantly, he had found a purpose that filled a void he didn't realize existed. One spring morning, Robert arrived at Jamal's apartment with a surprise. He handed Jamal an envelope, a proud smile on his face. "Open it." Jamal's hands trembled as he tore it open. Inside was a letter of acceptance, a full scholarship for Kayla to attend a specialized school for visually impaired children. The scholarship covered tuition, therapy, and all necessary accommodations. Tears welled up in Jamal's eyes. I don't know how to thank you. Robert shook his head. No thanks needed. This is just the beginning. That day marked a turning point. Kayla's world expanded beyond their small apartment. At school, she met other children who understood her challenges. She learned new skills and gained confidence. Jamal watched with pride as his daughter grew stronger and more independent. But their journey wasn't without struggles. Sometimes, the weight of Kayla's condition pressed heavily on Jamal's shoulders. The long nights, the medical worries, the moments when he questioned if he was doing enough, all of it tested his resolve. During one particularly difficult night, Kayla was restless, struggling to sleep. Jamal sat beside her bed, holding her hand, whispering soothing words. The house was quiet except for her soft breathing. Robert called later that evening. Hearing the exhaustion in Jamal's voice, he didn't hesitate. I'm coming over. You're not alone in this. True to his word, Robert arrived with warm food and quiet support. They sat together in the dim light, sharing stories and memories. It was in these moments that their friendship deepened, no pretense, just two men united by love and responsibility. Robert confided about his own past, his fears, regrets, and the loneliness that had once consumed him despite his wealth. Jamal listened, feeling the barrier between their worlds dissolve. You've taught me what it means to be a real father, Robert said quietly. I want to be better. Jamal smiled. We are both learning. As months passed, the foundation expanded its programs. They offered workshops for parents, support groups, and therapy sessions tailored to each child's needs. Local businesses began to contribute, inspired by the story of a construction worker, his blind daughter, and a millionaire who chose compassion over status. One afternoon, a reporter visited for a feature story. Jamal, initially hesitant, agreed to share his journey. His honesty and humility touched many, bringing attention to the challenges faced by families like his. The article went viral, sparking nationwide conversations about disability, inequality, and the power of community support. Donations poured in, allowing the foundation to reach more children in need. With the growing spotlight, Robert found himself invited to speak at conferences and events. He used these platforms to advocate for inclusivity and accessible education. At a gala honoring the foundation's achievements, Robert stood on stage and looked out at the crowd. Meeting Jamal and Kayla changed my life. They reminded me that true success is measured by the impact we have on others. This foundation is a promise to every child and family that they are not forgotten. Backstage, Jamal hugged Robert tightly. Thank you for believing in us. Robert nodded, eyes glistening. Thank you for trusting me. Life had come full circle. The millionaire who once lived in a world of privilege had found real wealth in the bonds he'd forged. Jamal, the hard-working father, had gained a partner and friend who saw beyond his circumstances. Kayla, radiant and joyful, was the heart of it all, a symbol of resilience and hope. One evening, as the sun set over the city skyline, Jamal sat on the porch with Kayla in his lap. She ran her fingers over his hand, her smile bright. Daddy, she said softly, do you think we'll help even more kids someday? Jamal kissed her forehead. Yes, sweetheart. This is just the beginning. And as the stars appeared, twinkling above them, a quiet promise lingered in the air, a promise of love, perseverance, and the extraordinary power of kindness to change lives forever. Thank you for watching this incredible journey, a story of love, resilience, and the power of kindness to change lives. Sometimes, it's the simplest acts that create the biggest impact. Jamal's dedication, Robert's transformation, and Kayla's courage remind us that no matter where we come from, we all have the ability to make a difference. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales that celebrate hope and humanity. And remember, never underestimate the power of compassion. Together, we can change the world, one life at a time. Until next time, stay kind and keep believing.